Hey there, guys. Sorry about the delay. You're gonna have to excuse my voice a little bit. I've been sick, and it's just today kind of gotten back to the point where I can actually project it properly and not sound like awful. So hopefully, I'm gonna have to keep this one a little short. Something, small and not too long of a video to not, hopefully fall into some sort of horrible coughing fit and die while on camera. But other than that, it should be okay. So, in order to do something kind of small to get myself back into it, you may remember back several weeks ago, I was doing a bit of a kind of a series of videos on Shmups, the kind of smaller games on Steam, some shoot 'em ups with RPG elements and things like that that I was having a lot of fun with. Just small games that you can jump into and jump out of and have a lot of fun in the meantime. And I got some messages from a couple of people that were like, hey, you missed one, and you missed a really good one. And this is that one. This is Steredenn by Pixel Nest. And it is pretty awesome, and I'm really glad that it got pointed in my direction, or I got pointed in its direction, rather. It is a procedurally generated shoot 'em up with lots of weapon variety and some really hard bosses. It is in the kind of bullet hell style. It gets harder and harder. The runs are different every time you go. The kind of general enemy variety and things are the same each time, but each level is going to be pieced together a bit differently, and there are several different bosses that you can encounter at each stage, and each one has its own bullet patterns and things like that, and also each run will have a different selection of weapons that you're more likely to run into, and different upgrades, which we'll get into when we actually start. There's also this, a daily run, which is kind of cool. Every daily run actually has the same bosses and things, I assume, and also different weapons and other things that you tend to start with, that everyone starts with in that run. So you have one chance every day to try it out and try and get the best score you can and post it to the board that day. So it's a fun thing to jump in every day and see what it's like. Today's you get to be a giant space drill, for instance. And there are all kinds of little randomly generated things that can happen. Also, you may notice the soundtrack for this game is really, really awesome. So let's just hop in. I'm playing with a controller, but honestly, I find the keyboard and mouse controls work just fine. You can rebind the keyboard and mouse controls. As it says, for maximum greatness, use a gamepad. But really, the controls are fine. It helps that they're pretty simple, really. Just a few buttons. And, well, your ship gets blown up. Congratulations, and here we go. You jump right in. Welcome to Steredenn. It's got a nice, chunky pixel art style. Lot of visual noise, but it usually doesn't get too hard to see, and, well, it begins immediately. In comes the soundtrack, and a series of enemies. And every wave is going to end with the boss fight, and the boss fights are going to be a selection, well, they're going to be from a selection of possible bosses, a different one each time, possibly, ow. And like I said, each different one has its own, bullet patterns and things. As you may expect, score and score multiplier in a game like this, very important. Oh god, and those are cargo ships, and cargo ships have their own weapons in them and things. What laser? Maybe I shouldn't have replaced my blaster with that, but I'm gonna go with it. The laser is nice because it allows you to move more slowly, which is good for weaving through complex bullet patterns and things, but it also, slows you down. And here's the first boss, and I get hit immediately because I suck. Alright, let's not do that. Now, the way the bosses work is, as you would pretty much expect, they just don't show a health gauge. As you do more damage to them, this little face is going to pop up that shows you that, you are continuing down their health gauge, and their bullet patterns are going to get more complex. They're going to change exactly what they do, and that's just how the general progression through the boss fight's going to work. And I'm not even going to make it past this one this time because I screwed up, and that probably wasn't the combination of weapons to use. Let's just try that again. As you saw there, probably at the bottom of the screen, there was a selection of bosses leading up to some giant great evil mothership thing that's absolutely terrifying, because I've been up to the Destroyer rank bosses so far, which is the third ships, the kind of two big ones after the in the middle there. They're not easy. the game itself is not easy, as you would expect. Breaking those cargo ships is very, very important, which is why I'm really upset that I didn't get that one. Because actually getting a set of weapons that work together well is very, very key to actually surviving any length of time in one of these runs. But more importantly, well, just as importantly, you see that the boss, well, any enemy actually flashes a color when you hit them. And every weapon type actually has a damage type. This is explained in the tutorial. And if something flashes red, that means you're doing a basic amount of damage against it. If it flashes orange, that means it's resistant to whatever weapon type you're using, and it's going to take even longer to kill it, which is bad. And if it flashes purple, that means you're doing extra damage against it. And mercifully, a lot of the earlier bosses seem to take extra damage from bullet weapons. So that's nice for, you know, beginners, I suppose. But if I can just not die, there we go. When you beat a boss, your health will refill completely. That's the only way to refill your health, by the way. And you'll be given a choice of one of 5 of these power-ups. These are sort of passives, and these will persist. So, let's see. What do I want? Weapons reload faster. I wonder if that will make this fire faster. I'm gonna try it. Even if not, I may get something else later on that benefits from that. Missiles or something. And on to the next part we go. And as you can tell, the game is just pretty much non-stop action until you die. It just goes and goes. And it never really slows down. In fact, it just gets faster. And it gets more and more hectic, faster and faster, bigger bosses with much more complex patterns, much more, like, hectic screens of enemies with bigger enemy types and some other nasty stuff. What's a demuxer? Whoa! Alright, sure, I'll take that. And you really, really want to get a series of weapons that work together nicely, like I keep mentioning but not really expanding on, because the weapons you will have access to, you can only hold 2 at once. So, you know, like I mentioned, the whole enemies being resistant to certain weapon types thing, that's important, especially if you're stuck against a boss that's resistant to whatever weapons you have. Which means it's going to take a lot longer. You need to learn what weapon types do well against what, and bring that with you. And kill a lot of those freighters to get some cargo. This is a nice weapon, but its direction of fire for that main weapon seems to be based on movement. Which could be a problem depending on what you're dodging at the time, but in this case I'm doing fine. And it's powerful, being a bullet weapon against a lot of these early bosses, and that wasn't a challenge at all in this case, but I shouldn't have said that because now I'm going to get obliterated in the next stage. But let's see what I get. Keep on shooting after swap, a shockwave on collision, ooh, extra damage with bullet weapons, or an autocannon added to bullet weapons. Let's just do this. The autocannon is nice, it's just an auto-firing extra weapon that's like welded onto your ship as long as you have a bullet weapon selected, which is pretty cool. Okay, and here, sunburn, oh god. So, essentially what can happen is occasionally on some levels you'll get a random event that happens, which helps with the replayability a lot. I would say that this is one of the most replayable games of its particular kind, because of the large variety of bosses that are available, and weapons, and weapon combos, and the synergies with all of those different possible, you know, passives that you get from beating a boss. All of those, and these random events that can happen whenever, just whenever you go on a level, and do all kinds of things, make the game very, very replayable. Every section can play out quite a bit differently. Ah, crap. And it does get really, really hard. Oh, good. And, I mean, I've seen some really cool little bits, like huge asteroid fields. There are some asteroids that are explosive, that have, like, bombs in them. I've seen large asteroid fields that were just filled with bombs and enemies, and just a couple of well-placed shots is what you needed. Like, there were way too many enemies to actually kill, technically, unless you had a really, really good weapon, which that early you probably wouldn't have. But, if you were able to actually figure out that, you know, you were supposed to blow up the asteroid field in time, well, there you go. So in this case, the random event sunburn means there's a big sun in the background that's making things a bit hard to see. It's making things a little more difficult on me, but it's adding to my score. Yeah, here's a destroyer. I barely have any health left, so I'm probably not gonna make it long. Oh god. No, I don't see myself doing extremely well this time. Gotta be honest. It's really a game of endurance because you've got to make it through the entire stage and through the boss. Oh, that was a bad place to be. Without dying, because the bosses are what refill your health. Every stage is a gauntlet, and it just gets harder and harder, and it becomes very, very, very difficult very quickly. But this is Steredenn. It is a non-stop hectic panic to amass power and make it as far as you can every time. I would say that this is a success on that formula. Like I said, I've done several of these roguelite-ish shmups that have tried to inject some kind of roguelike or RPG elements in the shoot-'em-up formula. Ooh, got that weapon back. I like it. I like it. And they've had varying degrees of success. This one I really, really like. It's got a nice art style. I know some people don't like pixel art and things like that, and that's fine. But I personally like it if it's done well. And this has a really nice, chunky pixel look to it with a lot of really nice particle effects because, you know, it's kind of in your face, really bombastic, and obviously that's the point because every part of the game just screams that that's what it's supposed to be. I guess I really appreciate that theme because the game goes all out with it. All the bosses are like that, the soundtrack is like that, the weapons are like that. I mean, you can be a giant space drill. You can have homing missiles, you can have giant torpedoes that explode twice, you can do a lot of pretty ridiculous things. And there are bosses that, as you saw, fill the screen with a giant laser that kills you immediately because you failed to dodge it. It is a game of trial and error, but it doesn't really punish you for you know, not learning quick enough, necessarily, because it's so fast that you just start right back up and try again with all new weapons and all new passives, and you just keep going. So it's difficult to feel bad when you lose, even if you've made it pretty far, because it was probably really, really fun. It was so hectic and just non-stop up to that point that that's the only minute you've actually gotten to breathe for a few. And it's hard to be upset at that kind of feeling when everything finally grinds to a halt and you get to think for a few and you decide, you know what, let's just jump right back in. It's a lot of fun, and it's only $13 right now. It is $13 on Steam, so Steredenn by Pixel Nest, and I believe it's developed by Pixel Nest, published, I mean, by, oh gosh, who's the publisher? They've published a bunch of stuff on Steam, a bunch of good stuff. They are like an indie, one of those smaller indie publishers that does some, oh goodness, what is all of this? A smaller indie publisher that does things in the way of indie kind of roguelite-y things for the most part. I can't think right now of a lot of the other stuff they've done. I'm sick, give me a break. Dang it. But science magic, that sounds like fun. But yeah, I would say if you like shmups, then this one probably is something that should interest you. I kind of missed the boat on this one. It's still going fairly strong, though. It's still pretty popular, and it's still getting updated. It's had some recent bug fix updates for other operating systems and things like that, but they have recently been wanting to add more in the way of actual content updates. They haven't been able to do that yet, but they have said that they've finally reached the point where they feel that, you know, a lot of the bug fix updates have been pushed out. So now they can probably focus on actually adding those content pushes. So maybe soon you might expect some new stuff to be put in the game. I mean, the most recent bigger update was the 29th of February, so, you know, it hasn't been that long. Ooh, semi-automatic weapons are fully automatic. That would be really useful for the Impaler, which is a really cool, like big burst nailer style weapon. But yeah, it is a bombastic, in-your-face style kind of shmup with RPG elements, with roguelike elements, whatever you want to call it. It is a shoot-'em-up that is very, very good, and it has an absolutely amazing soundtrack. Seriously, the soundtrack is killer on this thing. It is like a well, it fits the rest of the game, an in-your-face kind of metal style, and it's really awesome. I actually would love to have the soundtrack separately for this. I'm not sure if that's something that can be done, but if it is, I want it. Oh, hey, look, the Impaler. Now I kind of wish I had taken that semi-auto bonus. Anyway, yeah, so if it interests you, pick it up on Steam right now for $13. The link, oh god, is in the description below this video. There's not much else I can say on this one. That is Steredenn. If you liked the video, feel free to hit the like button. If you don't like the video and you are a weak individual that does not like metal, then feel free to dislike. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Although I feel that I'm obliged to at least make it to the boss fight because I'm so close and, you know, it is that sort of game. So let's go to the boss fight really quick. Hang on. Gosh. Let's just kill everything in the way. Uh-oh. I do like the fact that there are a lot of weapon types, including drones, that you can lay down, that do cater to a fairly large number of gameplay styles, and you can mix and match them however you want. Made of heavy metal. We'll see about that. Okay, yeah, it is. They were right. If I maybe put some of those in the way to distract the rockets? Nope, not really? Okay, good to know. Sort of works, but those are flame bots, so they deploy a lot more slowly. Good God, those are fast. See, when they open up like that, I'm terrified to be in front of them because they have those giant cannons in the middle. Alright. Okay. Yeah. Man, yeah, the art style is really good. All the shading is pretty detailed with lighting effects and things when they fire like that. It's a good game. I like it. It's a really good game. It's hard not to be impressed because it's so nice. Close. Very close. Almost beat a destroyer finally, but not quite. It is called a destroyer, after all. I mean, you know, it's kind of a foregone conclusion, I suppose. But anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.